Welcome to What Values Should the Lighting Design Profession Embrace to Remain Relevant in the Future? My name is Joe DeGuzman, and I'm the Senior Certification Coordinator for the IALD. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to go over some housekeeping. If you have any questions for the speakers during the presentation, please type them into the questions icon. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation. However, you can submit questions at any time. If you have any technical issues, please put them in the chat function and an ILD staff member will respond to you privately in the chat. The session will be recorded and available after the conference. Your microphones will be muted and your cameras off for the duration of this session. Before I introduce our speakers, I want to especially thank our sponsor for this session, Traxon Technologies and Osram Business. Traxon Technologies, together with its control brand EQ, is a global leader in dynamic lighting and control systems, providing innovative, performance-driven, and intelligent lighting solutions. And now for our panel. Randy Burkett, a fellow and past president of the ILD, is a design principal of Randy Burkett Lighting Design. He has been responsible for the design of lighting projects throughout the world, including museums, retail environments, offices, hospitality venues, and building exteriors. Carrie Hawley, a professional member of the ILD, is a senior principal, co-CEO, and founder of HLB Lighting Design's Boston office. Carrie brings over 25 years of considerable experience in the lighting field and also leads the marketing and business development at HLB Lighting. Andrew McKinnon, associate IALD, is the owner and design principal at Gabriel McKinnon, having worked in the lighting industry for more than 20 years. His experience covers the range of architectural design, from city master plans to residential spaces and large portfolio of custom fixture designs. And finally, Victor Palacio, a lighting designer from Mexico City, is a founder of Ideas and Luz, an architectural lighting design firm. His experience in lighting spans 25 years in projects for national museums, high-end residences, historic monuments, and more. Victor is a past president of the ILD and a CLD. Randy, take it away.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the introduction. And I want to add my welcome to all of you out there to Enlighten America's 2020, probably unlike any you've ever attended. But we're glad to virtually see you, although I guess you see us and we don't see you. But nonetheless, it's great to have those of you who could make it be with us today. Frankly, I think I'd rather be in one of those dingy hotel ballrooms right now, speaking to you with this great panel. Much better connection, even though the acoustics would be bad and the lighting would be bad and it would be an uncomfortable space. So maybe from that standpoint, it's best you are sitting where you are. In any event, again, thanks for coming. And today's panel, as Joe introduced, you'll see them around me. Hopefully you're watching the screen. And we are doing this live, as if that wasn't obvious, and we felt pretty strongly about that part. We wanted to, we're going to get into some discussions back and forth, and maybe in some cases challenge each other with certain answers or questions, but we'll be doing this over the next 55 to 60 minutes. We'll have that time for questions, and Don will jump in for those, and so we're looking forward to that. But let's get started. One of the things that we talked about when we were getting ready for this program, which is ostensibly, what does the lighting design profession need to do to continue to thrive in the future, or frankly, to even be relevant in the future? I remember when I first started in this profession, I won't say when anymore, but one of the first things that, or I should say maybe that what I tended to spend a lot of time doing was convincing clients and would-be clients that lighting design was even a profession, or perhaps an important aspect of its overall design. Most of those clients were used to having the electrical engineers do their work, perhaps sales reps, distributors, and so forth. And although that's still some of that with us today as well, we've struggled for the past 30 to 40 years to become more relevant in the eyes of our peers, peer groups, fellow professionals, architects, interior designs, and so forth, and most importantly to the clients and decision makers. Well, that's not our problem anymore. At least I think all the panelists today would agree with me when I say that lighting is relevant. In fact, all those days of trying to convince people that lighting was important, it's now upon us, and it wasn't us that made it important. There's a real awareness in the design professions and the built environment as a whole that lighting is an important aspect of a successful project. And we didn't used to hear that. We do now. However, having said that, that's led to a proliferation of folks interested in doing lighting, interested in being involved in lighting. And as design professionals, many of you in this audience are, you know that there are other folks out there doing lighting design than just IALD members or lighting designers or lighting practitioners. There are many folks who have tackled lighting for many different reasons, sometimes financial, sometimes an interest in design, sometimes, well, this looks easy, I'll do it. Well, probably none of those are completely true. And today we're going to talk about this. Since lighting has become important to our peers and to our clients, what does that mean for not just our future, but the future of lighting design, period? How is it going to get done? What's its role in the new environments? And I think we're going to touch on some of that as we discuss it here in the next few minutes. So our format today, we have three panelists, as you saw when we first were introduced. I'm going to introduce each of them in succession to address a topic of their own choosing that focuses on that question. How does lighting design as a profession remain relevant? And they each have a slightly different take, and I think each of those are quite interesting. I'll also ask the two that are not speaking on the principal topic of underway, I'll ask them to comment as well. I would like to ask you as attendees to jot down your notes or questions you might have for both that speaker or any of the speakers today, because we're going to hold all the questions to a 10-minute group at the end. So we'll dominate the next 45 minutes, but we'll give you, I hope, ample time to ask some key questions, as well as we may have an opportunity to follow up with others. So with that in mind, let's take a look at these topics. And our first speaker today is going to be Carrie Hawley. You heard her introduced a few moments ago by Joe, and I'm going to welcome her to come on board now. I think when I spoke to Carrie initially about this, she had some very interesting observations on this issue of remaining relevant in the future for lighting design professionals and the profession as a whole. And so, Carrie, I think I want to see you look, as we discussed, looked at lighting and the competition we're now facing for design, and both in time and perhaps in some cases for clients, and also talk about how lighting is no longer just done by a certain group of people and what that means in different marketplaces. And certainly, what do we need to do as both as professionals, and what do younger emerging professionals need to do both now and in the future to remain relevant to their clients? Carrie, take over.
Thank you, Randy.
Sure.
I want to really start this off by picking a bit up on what you were saying, where 25, 30, 40 years ago, people were saying, what is a lighting designer? Didn't understand the profession. And then now, most of us, when we were asked what we do, the minute that we say that we're an architectural lighting designer, we often get the response, someone gets excited, their eyes light up, and they say, oh, lighting is important. That's the first thing that comes out of their mouths, which is really exciting. You can see the amount of progress that the industry has made. It's dramatic. I think this is about where are we going next and how do we stay relevant. So I think it's moving the needle collectively as an industry from lighting is important to lighting is critical. And that's the goal at hand. So having us become fundamental to projects as opposed to a nice to have or a luxury service. So I think one of the things that's really interesting about it is to look at the diversity of markets all over North America, all over Europe, all over Asia, et cetera, the entire world, frankly, where there are markets that we can refer to as baked. They're very well vetted. They have really, really strong industry representation and diversity and a voice, a larger voice potentially, that you might consider New York or London to be a fully baked market or a very baked market. And then there are a lot of markets that you might say are half-baked, where they have some lighting design presence, and they might be growing. They may have been transforming over the last 10 to 15 years. And then there are still many, 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 many more markets which are emerging or may not even have a lighting design presence yet. And so the answer is complex, that you can't just apply one strategy to one market. We have to think collectively about what is going to improve the answer to critical in the future for every market moving forward. And so what I think is really key to that is for us to all lean into the competition. And I mean the professional competition. So right now there are many markets where perhaps there are somebody who's trained in sales putting together lighting, and they may even be resisting doing it. They just may be doing it as a support service to make sure that they can get a sale for their client. It may be an electrical engineer who really didn't learn design theory, but learned circuiting and is okay with doing it, but it isn't their passion. So there are many people out there that may be putting lighting packages together, but I think what we want to do is collectively create a larger presence for what the power of lighting design is, what lighting design can do to elevate architecture, the built environment, and the urban realm for everyone, and how that can really transform and continue to make our world a better place. And that really needs to happen by leaning into the competition. So by people being afraid of competitors opening up shingles, it really, I think it's better for us to not get so worried about that. That's not really a problem. It could actually, particularly in an emerging market or in a half-baked market, make it a lot easier in the long run. So by having more critical mass, it can create a greater awareness, a greater presence, more project volume that has lighting designers included. And so while we're still representing a small percentage of all of the built architecture, at the same time, we're seeing that increase over time. So I really encourage us all to think about our network of friends. I mean, this is such a wonderful experience to be at these conferences and share together and learn together and grow together and move forward into the future together. That's really important. And the more that we do that, the more that we embrace our colleagues and expand our industry, we're all going to be better off. There's going to be more work for all of us moving forward, more opportunities, and we're going to be making more of an impact on the built environment. So I think that really what comes down to competition is it's going to create more indispensability, and it's going to legitimize our roles and make us more of an asset, something that has to happen. Some of the things that I really think would be helpful is if, and what the IALD can be helping with in this way, or our professional organization to help us, is by helping to facilitate additional best practices for us, particularly in the areas of contracts. I think we're all seeing an increase in working under contract, but and the AIA did an incredible job of improving their contracts and covering people in best practices, allowing them to have templates. So can the ILD expand contracts that we can use to support what a professional lighting designer should be covered by, what our responsibilities should be, and then where it's out of, where we might need to be protected. Liability insurance. Can we expand that so that it becomes an offering for more and more lighting designers? Otherwise, architects have to take on that risk, or other design team members. So can that become a bigger part of our conversation and expansion of the benefits of IALD membership? Can we help protect our members through working on what we would consider higher risk clients in the future and best practices associated with that, like requesting retainers, getting paid for part of it up front, and expecting that, because that's a norm. It's not that only a few people are requesting that, but everybody who responds to the proposal requests that, and that makes sense then. The client then says, oh, there's a value to what we do here, and I can't just take off with the last bill and not pay it. Payment schedules. So again, can the ILD help people get into an understanding of professional best practices? And then what can we do as an industry in lobbying to be a bigger part of some aspects of standards and how things happen on a statewide level. I'm basing my conversation in the United States, but this could apply to all over the world. But one example is here in Massachusetts, where I practice. There's a wonderful benefit that the two utilities came together, and when we're confronted with Design Lights Consortium compliance, which many of our clients are concerned about, then we've now been able to elevate that conversation. And so instead of having to find actually compliant fixtures, which can be very complicated in the specification market because of all of the various SKUs that can be created with the specifications, now it gives us the ability to be able to have our fixture schedule simply reviewed and approved because we're professional IALD members. So it's a benefit provided to projects that engage a professional IALD member. And that's huge, I think. If we can come up with more benefits like that, again, it will legitimize our profession and give more safeguarding to projects in the future to ensure quality and that clients are getting their value of what they're expecting out of a lighting designer. And then one last thing that I'd just like to add is how I really think it would be valuable to focus on really getting lighting designers to be listed in that list of requirements on the RFP. So more and more, we see all things code consultants, all sorts of specialists that get listed on there. And if we could, again, lobby for more of a presence, if we could get on public projects, statewide projects, how can we elevate that role so that lighting design is legitimized further and we all have more opportunities for practice? I'll leave it at that.
Carrie, I think, first of all, it was excellent. Some of those points you made rang true for me and for our practice, in that we're constantly striving to establish ourselves, establish beachheads in with architects or design professionals or clients in trying to get on RFPs. And there are a lot of clients, every time they send out an RFP, there's a line that says lighting designer or lighting consultant. And it never used to be that way. In fact, you had to explain what a lighting consultant was, but more and more are having a line. And we go to our end user clients and we ask them, hey, why don't you include that? And maybe we're not going to do it all the time, but you'll know that a professional's coming in and can be part of that. Those were really interesting comments. I'd like to maybe toss over to you for a moment, Andrew. Do you have maybe a follow-on to that, an observation from some of what Carrie said that you could share?
Yeah, I think the size of the market has a really, really big impact on that. And one of the things I think that we do need to be careful about when we're talking about these things is that we need to understand that professional architectural lighting designer hopefully is a member of the IALD, a professional member of the IALD when they get their paperwork in, but that there's this notion of increasing the profession, and that in the smallest of markets, that still is very much what's an architectural lighting designer. And I think the IALD can go really far in helping with those basic resources of what's a matrix of responsibility, like who's responsible for what if you have a professional lighting designer on board. But I do think that this argument is it is very different. Obviously, London, New York, LA, Beijing, I'm sure. But these places are, Carrie had a great term, fully baked. But when I'm going to an area an hour north of Toronto, I'm still explaining what a lighting designer is. And frankly, people haven't heard of the IALD. And the more that I can assist them in understanding that, but the ability for them to go and find out how lighting designers work, not just how awesome we are, but how we work, I think that would be very useful to take it out of my mouth and put it into somebody else's. And frankly, why not have that on the architect's page as well? AIA. How do these people work?
Yeah. That's a good comment. Victor, would you have any reflections on what Carrie just said?
Yes, I think that Carrie made a very interesting statement by saying that nowadays lighting is critical. It's not a luxury. And it is not a luxury service anymore. We've had an evolution, of course. 50 years ago, coming out of a very technical approach, lighting engineers, and then evolving into more aesthetical approaches. But right now, lighting is critical, and that I would like to say that we have been helped by external forces because the concerns about the environment, concerns about health, I will try to elaborate a little bit more about that later, have made people become more aware of what is the importance of light in their lives. And finally, that's the point. When people realize that light is important in their lives, they will be interested in learning about lighting, in having people specializing in lighting to be their consultants, their designers, their engineers. So I think that's a very, very strong statement. And the other one from Kerry I like a lot is that, Kerry, you are saying that we need to collectively create a stronger presence. And that's what we have been doing, either by being part of associations. Some people here, some of the attendees are part of other associations in Italy, France, South America, even in Mexico. But by being part of associations, we create that collective strength. But we can do it anyway if we are not part of an association, if we gather with our peers, like Andrew said, when you go to those markets, not bake the markets, and you advocate for the benefits of lighting, you are doing a great service to the profession.
Yeah. Excellent comments. Well, thank you, Victor, and certainly thanks to Kerry for that lead off. We're going to be touching on, I think, a couple of those things that we just brought up again with our next couple of panel members. Andrew, I'd like to turn to you next. And one of the things that came out of, I think, even what Kerry was saying, that although we heard the term, the association's name, IALD, appellation, I think this is a time now where a lot of people are out there doing lighting design that aren't ILD members. And how important is that as part of this new profession that's evolving? And I would say, Andrew, I'd be interested in getting your reflection on that, but also what really matters to the clients. If they do, we want them all just to think ILD is a badge that they have to look for, or what's really mattering to our clients? And frankly, they should set that agenda, not us. And I'd be interested in hearing your reflections on that, as well as perhaps what role the ILD does play in fostering our futures as it relates to satisfying our clients and others.
Yeah, so thank you, Andy. So one of the things that that has struck me as growing up in, I really did grow up in the IALD. When I started my real work as an architectural lighting designer back in 1997, I was working under Phil Gabriel, and he was the president of the IALD at the time. So I was thrown into this right from the start, and it benefited me hugely. And from then, at that time, we were describing ourselves as a young industry, and I think, still 20 plus years later, we're a little bit older. We're still a young industry, but we have come a long way. And when I think about, as we describe to clients, what is a lighting designer? Who are we? What do we do? Then there's this question of what's a professional architectural lighting designer, and then perhaps further, what's an independent professional architectural lighting designer, and is that an important extra step? And throughout the decades, I found that I think the IALD needs to address the fact that being independent as a differentiator may have run its course. That in the big picture, I think we mean to move beyond the notion of our independence, which is our business model, as being relevant to our quality, our values, our experience, and particularly our capability. We need to serve a higher purpose. The vision right off the main webpage, the vision of the IALD to create a better world through leadership and excellence in lighting design. You know, that is so much higher than a business model. And I think also a little bit farther down that same page, it reads the 1,400 lighting designers around the world who are members of the IALD hold a position of distinction and authority in the lighting design profession. And I agree. I think we do. And I think that those positions of distinction and authority in the profession, I mean, they would be there whether we were marketing, whether we were offering our services as an independent or whether we were offering our services in some other fashion. Right? If I was hired by a lighting manufacturer, my skills and capabilities don't just vanish the day I change my business card. So I think our business model of independence is a very useful one. I think it allows us to do the work that we do and provide the highest values to the company, to our clients, I should say. But it does not, our independence is not our quality, right? And being a practicing member of the IALD, I think also shouldn't be held up as design excellence. That's what our portfolio is. That's what our references are. That's what our CV is. We talk about ourselves and our design excellence that way. And I think the IALD is the membership, the association that gives us a voice, and it gives us resources, and it lets other people understand that we're part of a bigger picture. But I think early on, it was very useful for us. You know, I'm not attacking where we've come from. Early on, it was very, very useful for us to say, look, I'm a fantastic lighting designer because I'm a member of the IALD, you know, and now it's, I'm a fantastic lighting designer, look at my portfolio, and I'm a professional member of the IALD, or I'm a member of the IALD, and this is what that means, okay? And so it's just moving that beyond. I think one of the other things that we need to do is that we need to move beyond the notion of the argument that we adhere to a higher standard of ethics. And this is an important part. We are ethical, but to suggest that if it were not for us, that the customer is going to get screwed because all of the other aspects of the lighting industry are just not ethical. You know, I think that for the first part, disparaging the manufacturers, sales reps, and distribution channels that we partner with every day, it's not a really good way to start the conversation. And being ethical, you know, it's the lowest of bars. All of those things that we talk about in bringing leadership and excellence in lighting design, cultivating the universal acknowledgement and appreciating the power of light, I mean, that goes so far beyond just acting professionally that I think that absolutely we need standards of ethics, and we need to be able to talk about that. But again, you know, we have to move beyond that notion of if it weren't for us, you're really going to get screwed by everybody, right? We're so much more than that. And, you know, where do we, so, okay, if we can all agree to that, but where do we go from there? I think that one of the things the IALD needs to do is we need to help people we need to get them from interested in light to professional lighting designer, right? In the past, so much of that was simply working under the wing of an IALD professional. It was a young industry. You went and found somebody and you worked for them. And, you know, that doesn't work very well if you want to be the first IALD professional in your region, in your country. And so we need to move beyond, you know, just our conferences and our seminars. We need to be the resource that people go to get a higher level of training, to have a higher level of resource. You know, we're not the library of lighting design, right? There are other associations that are doing that. And many times they're doing that with an IALD member in a key role, but it still doesn't say IALD on the front cover, right? And you still don't go to the IALD website for that. So I think it's really important for the IALD to really do more to help people become a professional lighting designer, to understand what that means, and to celebrate their design capabilities, regardless of how they're in the, design capability, I think it can absolutely be independent of business model. And we have an important role in promoting our business model as the best way to achieve that design excellence. It's not the only way, but we need to stop conflating business model with design capability. I think that's an important aspect of it.
Well, very good, very interesting perspectives, Andrew. I was going to ask for a comment from Victor not yet, but I'm wondering, you mentioned about the IALD and what its role can be as an advocate for good lighting design in holistically speaking. And I think some of the ideas you had are ones that could take root and frankly have. It's just whether or not we nurture the right ones. And we're in a position, not just as IALD members, but as lighting design professionals, to contribute to those sprouts of those ideas and bring up all the boats, not just ones that benefit us specifically. And as Carrie said earlier, lean into the competition. In this case, join them and talk about things together and how everyone can benefit from better lighting design. Victor, I want to go to you for a moment. First, do you have a reflection on what Andrew said? Maybe a thought or two?
Yes. Just first of all, I am happy that this conversation is being recorded, because the way Andrew addressed this topic was fantastic. I think it was very precise. And I just would like to add that I agree with you, and I'm going to talk about the independent business model. I agree with you. It has been a relevant differentiation factor, and it has a lot of value regarding the practice of lighting design. I've always thought that, and of course, this is a personal choice. People and companies make the choice to follow this business model, and of course that helps a lot to develop the work we do. And it is at some point it is critical to give you the time and the resources that you need to develop the lighting design work in the depth that it requires. Though I agree with you that this is speaking about independence as the differentiation factor of our profession is a little bit outdated, given all the things that are coming related to light, to make light critical. And it is also as part of the chain that we make part of in the construction environment, in the built environment. As you said, there are many ways to find collaboration. And I just would like to mention some of those archetypical examples of companies like Focus Lighting in New York. I would like to mention a Canadian lighting designer, Douglas Welch, people who have decided at some point to expand their business model to provide additional services that might go into the commercial side. But that doesn't mean they automatically stop being excellent lighting designers. So as it is still a relevant value, and I am an independent lighting designer, and my clients are happy because of that. Actually, some of our prospects have sent RFPs because they say, we want you to be here because you are an independent lighting designer. I wouldn't focus that much on that. I think that's a factor that makes our business grow in certain markets or be more desirable, more valuable in certain projects. And when you are not, when the project does not require an independent lighting designer, maybe we just have to face it. But in my participation in a few more minutes, I would like to expand those ideas.
Good comments, Victor. Certainly independence, as you said there at the end, is sometimes can be a difference maker in securing a professional commission. But it's really just another one of the tools in the box, and there are a lot of tools available to professionals today. Carrie, any quick thoughts before we move on to
Sure,
Victor again?
I'll be very brief. I just think I agree with the need for us to move beyond that and in order to maintain our relevance. And the conversation about lighting is expanding at such a rapid rate in so many different directions, from digital media to projection mapping, integration services, et cetera, et cetera. We can't live on tenets that were created 40 years ago, 30 years ago. We need to just create expanded tenets and new ways of the industry moving forward together. It's necessary.
Very good. Thank you, Carrie. And Victor, Andrew, thank you for your comments. I think they were poignant and certainly thought-provoking. Our third panelist you've already heard from twice, but now I'm going to ask him to dive a little deeper, and that's Victor. Victor, in several conversations we've had, not just you and I, but the panel here and others in a drink at the bar one day, we've talked about how the role of the lighting designer, which we've struggled for years to define, is now very much beginning to transform itself. We're constantly asked for opinions on lighting or lighting related things that aren't specifically lighting design. And we know, just think of the words that you hear people throw out now that we never heard from other people's mouths, things like circadian stimulus or circadian rhythms and disability glare and TM30 and color changing, white tuning. These are all, some of these are technologies, some of these are just catchphrases for things, but we're hearing other people outside the lighting, the hardcore lighting community use these terms. Whether they know what they are, they're not sure. But that's just really the tip of the iceberg as well. And Victor, I know you have some thoughts about the role of the lighting designer, both now or maybe even previously, now and perhaps in the future, and how it may take on almost has an air of renaissance about it. So why don't you give us your thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Randy. Well, regarding the question of this panel, how do we stay relevant in the future? I think that triggers another question. And that question is, what has been relevant so far and what will be relevant in the future? And I think the perspective has changed. At some point, it was really relevant to think that we focus on permanent architectural lighting design as opposed to other kind of places where lighting design is required. And I think that right now that has changed. And I don't see that in 10 years, we will be doing the same things in the same way. So just to structure it a little bit, I decided to come out with three ideas. One is related to the scope of work, second to capabilities, and the third one related to process. First one related to scope of work, I think that we really need to redefine what we want to be. Do we want to be that part of the design team that works with the architect to develop a traditional project in the traditional way, from schematic design, design development, construction documents, construction administration, and just for architectural permanent installations? Is that what we want to be in the future? If we say yes, that's okay. But we need to think about it. We need to make a deep reflection on that. Or do we want to be those specialists in light that can help other teams, like, for example, physicians working in projects related to people's well-being? Do we want to be those people working in developing strategies for urban development, where light will be a key factor for people's well-being, also for socializing, for energy saving, for data transfer through the lighting systems? There's a lot to do in the future, and not only in the future. Right now, we are dealing with issues like, how do we mitigate the impact of light on the environment, not only by reducing the power of the electricity that we are using for producing light, but also getting involved in how lighting fixtures are produced, what materials are used in their production, how do they recycle, will we be able to get a circular economy in the next few years? We have to think about it. So all of that is related to what I will say the experience of light. For some years, we were concerned about meeting technical codes. Then we were very concerned about creating an impact with light. I remember very well the phrase of light transforms the space, and that was a very useful phrase to demonstrate what was the power of light. But right now, as everything points out, we need to focus on the experience that people will have. Not only the user, the end user, but all the related people. For example, in a retail place, in a shop, in a shopping center, there are employees, there are visitors, there are customers. So there's a lot. There are a lot of people involved in any place where we design light for, and even as part of the process of designing light, we are involved with the architects, with the engineering teams, with owners, and that also creates some experience. So my point is, we need to really rethink what will be the scope of work and the role of lighting designers in the future. Related to capabilities, we gave a lot of thoughts to this when we started this conversation a few weeks ago. I think it is very important to think that we need to expand and strengthen our competencies. And I couldn't find any better reference for that than the CLD. For all those of you who already know what CLD is, I will invite you to revisit it. And for those of you who don't know what CLD is the only credential for lighting designers. We have been struggling for decades about having recognition. Well, there is a tool to be recognized. And CLD is based on 7 domains. I would like to mention them briefly. First one is goals and outcomes. That sets, it says that you need to be able, if you're a professional lighting designer, to set clear goals for the project and to predict what the outcomes will be. Then it is collaboration. Our profession is a collaborative one, no doubt about it. Then ingenuity related to creativity and resourcefulness for the projects. Synthesis related to that ability that we have been talking about of weighing in the technical and the aesthetical parts of a project. And right now, more than that, light related to health, well-being, environmental impact, a deeper appreciation of the impact of light, etc. So then we have as part of the domains of CLD, science as the basic tool that allows us to predict how light is going to interact with people and with the space. Stewardship related to the care that we need to have about the environmental impact. And finally, human experience, which is at the top of it. Finally, I would like to say about process. Then I just don't imagine ourselves in 10 years doing the things we do in the same way we are doing them right now. And this crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, is just accelerating things. It was there already, but now it's being accelerated. And starting with working from home, remotely from home, and developing the ability to work for teams to work together on real time from different places. That's just a starting point. But we need also to intersect other groups' interests. We need to be part of other conversations if we want to stay relevant. Otherwise, there will be other professionals who will do it. If we are not part of the conversations related to well-being, to health, to environment, even to very specific topics like how the dynamics of light affect productivity in an office, we are risking to be overtaken by other professions. We need to become leaders in that. We just can't be passive attendees of what technology is doing. We need to be part of the technological development. I've seen that in theater lighting. It is the lighting designers, people who really work with the actual lighting fixtures, who go back to the technology developers and say, hey, I need this fixture to do this and this, and I need you to modify it in this way. We have been very passive about it. We need to become more active, more proactive, and to really become leaders in the development of technology. And we need to think that lighting design is a broader discipline. And theater lighting is lighting design. Creating art installations on the public space is lighting design. Dealing with specific aspects of light related to specific problems can also be lighting design. It is not only about SD, DD, CD, and CA. That's not the definition of lighting design. That's just a methodology to develop a set of deliverables for a certain type of client. So we need really to expand our scope and our mindset about it. And just related to maybe what the next steps could be, I would like to emphasize 4 points. And first of all, and I need to insist on this, get your CLD. If you are a professional lighting designer, no matter what your business model is, no matter what your type of projects is, no matter what even your methodology of work is, you have a chance to be recognized as a lighting designer. And not only to be recognized, but by doing that, you are growing the critical mass of people who are recognized as lighting designers, and that helps a lot the profession. If we want utilities, authorities, private companies to recognize this certification that we have, we need to grow it. We need to take that little time and that little effort to get our proper credential. Second, I would recommend, and this is something that I am just recently doing, and thanks to previous panelists, Mark Gehring, Michael Gehring, and John, who spoke about business and business development. We need to make a business plan for the next 10 years, thinking what will be relevant in the next 10 years and what, starting on that point. And finally, we need to decide what is the role that we want to play in the future. We need to be really aware of what's the place that we want to take in the marketplace. And we need to learn, and then share. That's my point of view related to that.
Excellent. Well, Victor, that was great. Thank you. A wonderful dive into in 8 minutes or so. I think the CLD, I know you're a great proponent. I've heard from someone that you have a tattoo of the CLD somewhere, but we won't ask you about that today. In the interest of time and wanting to get questions, I understand there have been quite a few questions that have been coming in or comments. I normally would go to Carrie and Andrew now for a comment, but if they're okay with this, I'm going to see if Dawn will come back in, and she's been curating some of the questions and comments, and perhaps she can jump in at this point. And we have about 10 minutes or so left, I believe, and that'll give us time for some juicy stuff. So
Yes.
Dawn, are you able to help us?
Yes. Thank you so much for all of your comments and insights. And we do have a few questions, but I'd love to start off with a comment and to see if any of you would like to comment on the comment. And it says, we need to stop talking to ourselves on this topic and engage our prospective clients in this dialogue worldwide. And let's ask ourselves, how do we make this happen? So just as you think about the comments that you were making today, how do you broaden the scope of this conversation?
Okay, who wants to jump in?
This is in the context of the business model
Yes.
aspect that Andrew was talking about?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I'll start that off if I can. And I think that one of the reasons to have this conversation amongst ourselves is to talk about how we talk about ourselves. right? That's really the point. How we talk about ourselves and how we describe ourselves to our clients. So I think this discussion amongst us is specifically here, from my point of view, to alter that way that we describe ourselves. And I think one aspect of that is, historically, the most capable elite manipulators of light began doing what we were doing. And just the fact that it was an elite group made them, it indicated that this was this elite group of very capable people. But the business model isn't what made them capable, is that it was the elite that chose to take that business model. And now, as we expand this globally, thousands of people building the profession, that means that being part of that small group doesn't mean you're elite anymore. It means you're a practicing member of an industry. And that's the real shift. And so, but that is exactly how we talk to others.
Good, Andrew. Let's field another question. Don, do you want to come back?
Sure. We have a couple of questions regarding emerging professionals. And in fact, an emerger wrote into the Q&A that he was wondering what recommendations you would give him if he were to change careers in a few years and leave theater in order to pursue a career in architectural.
I'm having
Could you
a
say that
little
again?
trouble hearing you, Dawn.
Okay,
That's much better.
Much
Thank
better.
you.
Okay, so I'll just repeat the question. So we have a couple of comments regarding emerging professionals, and one is an emerger who's looking for recommendations you would want to give this person if this person would change careers in a few years and leave the theater in order to pursue a career in architectural lighting. So any recommendations on a career change? And Carrie, I'm happy to start off with you and move
Sure.
around the panelists.
Well, I'm assuming that the person is currently sitting at the IALD conference virtually. I think that's a great start, and getting involved in the conversation and taking advantage of educational opportunities. Speaking with lighting designers, hopefully there are some networking opportunities. Reach out to people, ask them for advice, ask them. There are many lighting designers. I think Stephen Rosen's sitting in this session. That's a good one to tap on the shoulder and ask about this. How did he get his start? And so many people come from theater and transition into architectural lighting. So I think you've got to start to develop the vocabulary that we use. You've got to learn the software that we use, and learn architectural language. And so potentially taking coursework, even if you're working, getting a job and working hands-on, just thrusting yourself into the situation, interning in that area would be really valuable. And I think right now, it's not a problem to be virtual. I actually think a lot of people are willing to do that virtually right now. And there are many situations that I see right now where we actually have given more opportunity to younger emerging professionals, because it's allowed us to include them at a seat at the table with client presentations, design charrettes, more interaction with the day-to-day client meetings, and having them understand the process better. So I think they're getting a lot more listening opportunities than we ever did in the past.
That's great answer,
I
Carrie.
would like to say that I fully agree with Carrie, but I would like to add my 2 cents to this response. First of all, and this is maybe a topic for another conversation in another time, we might be thinking that we are designers, and that it's a broader definition of what we do. We are designers, and our main tool is light. But many of us have got involved in other things, like when you are advising a client, you can give advice on the colors used in a space, the materials, on how the space flow, how people navigate the space. So I would like just to plant this seed that we are designers. And this comes from a friend in Spain, Ignacio Valero. He says that the lighting part is making a little bit of noise. Maybe we should call ourselves designers. And the other thing for the person who posted this question, we build our identity and we are defining our profession. So whatever you do will contribute to that, to build the profile of the profession and to make it grow.
Hopefully we have time for at least another one, just so we get another subject. Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say we have about 3 minutes left. And so I guess if there are any sort of last minute comments or perspectives that you would want to provide before we close up in about 3 minutes.
I want to say real quickly, Don, are the comments and questions that are appearing in the chat, will those be available as something that the panel could see, and perhaps we could selectively try to answer some of those for the group? Not now, but later.
I will work with you on with that. Randy.
Okay, very good. Let me real quickly go around the table. Carrie, why don't you start 30 seconds on what do you think of this discussion? Where do you think it should go from here?
I think this discussion, we could only jam so much into an hour. And we've actually, the four of us have spoken together before at IALD. So I think we need to continue this conversation actively. It's going to be evolving. We've seen massive change in the last 20 to 30 years. I think if anything, it's going to change even faster. So we need to buckle up and we need to stay ahead of it. We need to anticipate it, not be afraid of it. Lean into the change, accept the change, and be change agents, make things happen. And we need to do it as a collective group. So let's do it.
Good, thank you. Andrew.
I'm really happy to have been able to do this. One of the things that I want to say is that I think for people who are really active in the IALD and people who are, on this Enlighten program, that the IALD has always felt like this really much larger entity than it is. And it's because we have such great contacts with researchers, educators, the people in the manufacturing industry, our affiliates. And I think when we look at this idea of, we're the owners of light, and yet so much of our discussions involve these other professionals. So this notion of being a great designer, we're not the owners of all of this benefit of lighting that comes to the built environment. We have our role as designers, but I think that, we're already talking to so many other people as part of this. And I think that it'd be helpful for the IALD to feel like that from the outside as well, that it's a larger thing.
Good point. Victor, a couple of words.
Yes, I'm going to take on some of the comments from Andrew. He said that we have claimed that we are a young profession. I think we're still young, but now we are mature. We are not teenagers as a profession. So we're a young, mature profession, and this is the time to make important decisions. As when you are in maybe your 20s, 30s, and you make decisions about the rest of your life. We need to make those decisions, at least to be open-minded to have these conversations. And I am very happy that we had this opportunity to talk about it.
Well, we don't know what's coming up through the next door, but we'll have an opportunity very, very soon. The world is changing yet again, and we're a part of it, whether we want to be or not, and I think we do. One of the observations I make all the time is I'll be out socially, well, not so much now, but be out with friends, non-professional, non-lighting, non-architects, non-this, non-that. And they make comments about things. And every time, to me, I see light in their comment. They'll say, oh, look at how rich that redness is in the fall foliage. Oh, look at this, look at that. And I think light is imbued in everything we do. As humans, and as certainly we affect not only each other, or the people we design for, but also our environment and the world at large. So I think we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. I do think we can have a bigger role, especially as Victor has put the exclamation mark on it. I want to thank Carrie, Andrew, and Victor for being here today. I think it was a good discussion. Hopefully, those of you who attended got a few nuggets out of it, and we'll look forward to seeing you without a mask, maybe next time, and maybe in person. So thanks very much. Have a good conference.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye now.